So I saw Materialistics 2 days ago, and I have to say, it's a new rom-com that's not really a rom-com. Director and writer Celine Song, who wrote and directed Past Lives, it came out in 2023, I believe it was. 2023, got Oscar nominated in 2024 for Best Original Screenplay. And she comes with a new take on the rom-com genre. It starred Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal. And it is the newest film from A24. So anytime you go into an A24 film, you know you're in for a treat. Because generally speaking, A24 tends to produce some really great films. I want to start off by saying that I think this film is going to be a trailblazer. And it's going to generate a new subgenre within the genres of rom-coms. And that genre is going to be the elevated rom-com. Now, I know that sounds goofy as shit, but I think this film is going to do for rom-coms with Midsommar, The Babadook, The Witch, Hereditary, and films of that nature have done to horror. The next level, and kind of reinventing the wheel without really reinventing the wheel. The film has a Metacritic score of 73, which would be massively higher if it went for two reviews, one being from Slant Magazine and the other being from The Daily Beast, neither of which are magazines or newspaper articles, what I guess they're online magazines. I never heard of them. They're not any of your core, like Rolling Stones, RogerEbert.com, Chicago Tribute, Variety, New York Post, Chicago Times, staple newspapers and outlets, I guess you would call them, that really have a chokehold on film criticism. And these two aren't it. However, I mean, I'm not saying they don't have a spot in film criticism, but I've never seen them on the front of a poster. With that being said, I mean, if you look at it, their entire complaint from both critics is that it has a rom-com structure, and it's not a rom-com. And they go on and they kind of do the same thing a lot of new critics do, that kind of cut their teeth on their opening reviews, is they bash the shit out of rom-coms because of their basic predictable structure. Now, yes, the film does have a rom-com structure, which was completely intended. I mean, you can watch the trailer and say, okay, this is a rom-com. It's marketed as a rom-com, which could be part of the issue with people really not understanding this movie's not a rom-com. And I think it's going to take some time for us to really, for audiences to realize that there is a new subgenre within the genre of rom-coms. Yes, it takes the typical structure of a rom-com, which, like I said, the new critics tend to cut their teeth on and kind of bash and try to make themselves sound more, I guess you want to use the word prestigious or profound, like they have this critical eye for the art of film, when really rom-coms are supposed to have that 3-act structure, and it's supposed to play out that way, just like slasher films have a certain structure you go by. However, this is not your typical rom-com. I mean, it's very technically sound as far as a filmmaking perspective. I mean, you have some gorgeous shots in this film. The dialogue is razor sharp. All the characters are self-aware. It plays more to Song's previous film, Past Lives, than it does films like The Long Shot, Always My Maybe, The Lost City, Blended, Home Again, Your Place or Mine. When I say, those are just some of the films that we kind of listed off, are just some typical rom-coms. We're not going into your classic rom-coms that kind of hold more of a staple in film history, like Sleepless in Seattle, When Harry Met Sally, Notting Hill, again, is a rom-com, but I think was a little bit more. I think British rom-coms definitely are different than, American rom-coms or Hollywood produced rom-coms, and they're just just slightly different. Even About Time was a rom-com that had a different kind of approach to it, but again, it's because it's more of a British rom-com I would consider it to be. Even though you have Rachel McAdams in it, or Notting Hill had Julia Roberts, you had more. It was more from like British filmmakers who had a different technique into the staple of rom-coms. Like Love Actually is technically a rom-com, but it is one in which that is held in such high regard. It's not a typical rom-com. But again, this film takes it in a completely different approach that gives us a completely different approach to restructuring the rom-com genre. So I would argue, in the midst of creative freedom and allowing old Hollywood, or kind of following the old Hollywood model of making films, that we have not only got a fantastic film that I absolutely love, but we also created a new subgenre, which I think Hollywood's going to try to recreate and try to push out more films in that genre and have more films with this structure in which plays like a rom-com but isn't as tongue-in-cheek, so to speak, as a rom-com. Because you even have rom-coms that fall more on the side of comedies that I think are overlooked. Two in which come to mind that came out in the last 10 years are What's Your Number with Anna Faris and Chris Evans and No Hard Feelings. Both are rom-coms in their structural. Well, No Hard Feelings is more pushed as a sex comedy, which it kind of is, but it kind of has a rom-com structure to an extent. And then What's Your Number is a straight up raunchy ass comedy, but it's a rom-com type of structure to it, or a substructure that gives us this different approach to comedy with razor sharp dialogue and just really more than just mindless entertainment, if you will. Which again, I love rom-coms. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot of fun watching rom-coms. Out is Gone 10 Days, fun rom-com, but it kind of has an early aughts feel to it. And the rom-coms that we've gotten in the past couple of years lost their luster and really don't land as well as these older rom-coms kind of did. In the Matthew McConaughey kind of era, we'll say. Or the Julia Roberts era, because she did a lot of rom-coms as well. And I feel like they just don't land as well, at least the ones that came in the past few years. With those being like The Lost City, Always My Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of them that I feel like kind of came out that just, they felt more like movies of the week versus just fun rom-coms. When I say movies of the week, I mean more like TV movies. And they really didn't have that oomph that a lot of rom-coms in previous years had, especially the golden era, I would say, of the 2000s, the early aughts. That I think was the golden era of rom-coms. Again, you have your really straight up classics that came out, like Sleepless in Seattle and When Harry Met Sally. In the 2000s, you had more of your McConaughey's rom-coms with Julia Roberts and stuff like that. It was a different tone of rom-coms. And then we got to the point where they just kind of went now and void for a while. And they started to come back, and they were just really goofy and chewy. And I think this is a great alternative. And I think we're going to kind of see more of these kind of films being pushed out within the next few years. Question is, how you saw the film? What are your thoughts? Comment below. Let me know.